But we begin with new developments in the war with Iran as we hit 1 week in this growing conflict. Central Command continues to publish new videos today of what it says are Iranian targets being decimated by U.S. airstrikes. President Trump claimed Iran's air capabilities were similarly destroyed. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has warned that strikes against Iran were about to surge dramatically. It comes as Iran continues to launch new retaliatory strikes on neighboring countries that host U.S. forces.
CBS News foreign correspondent Ramy Inocencio joins us from our London bureau to talk more about this. Ramy, what's the latest on these overnight strikes? We see that the Secretary of Defense is saying that there will be no let-up.
Yes, and Vlad, actually, President Trump has also posted on Truth Social a statement saying there will be no deal with Iran except, quote, unconditional surrender. He said that Iran will have a great future, and he signed off Make Iran Great Again, MIGA, saying that the selection of a great and acceptable leader is what they are looking for. As for what's been happening in the latest, first off, we've been looking at Lebanon here because the health ministry this morning updated the latest death toll. That's now at 123 people. We've seen reports of many people fleeing their homes. Some have had to sleep on the streets, in their cars, in parks, because they left their homes so quickly. And this is coming after Israel's military said that it did launch this broad wave of strikes across Beirut overnight. And the IDF even specified that it launched 26 waves of strikes. And the focus, again, as we've been saying, is on Beirut's southern suburbs. This is the Dahia suburb, the stronghold of Hezbollah. The IDF said that they hit command centers and a storage site for drones. And then with Iran, the other front here, more than 100 more people have been reported killed in the past 24 hours. That death toll we're seeing now more than 1,300, according to Iran's Red Crescent. Seeing several massive explosions overnight, carrying on into the early morning hours. Local reports say that that's hitting the east and the south. But as for whether what Iran is lobbying at the Gulf nations, there's this question now, because they continue to do so, can Gulf states keep fending off Iranian drones and missiles? Regional officials tell CBS News the short answer is no, that they can't. And by the way, if you're hearing that alert, that is a fire alarm that goes off exactly at this time right now, but we are not under kind of any emergency here.
Fire alarm in the London bureau. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Ramy,
It's good
thank
to know
you for
that
the explanation.
You guys are safe.
I didn't know if there was some kind of magical thing happening over there. Ramy, let's talk a bit about what could be. We don't know what's coming, really, in the U.S. offensive here, but have you heard anything, any indications that we could see U.S. troops on the ground in Iran?
Yeah, that is the next potential, I guess, concern. But the answer is no, at least right now, according to President Trump. He's said that this would be, in his words, a waste of time. But what he is also doing today, or in the past 24 hours, he has now been encouraging people on the ground in Iraq and on top of that in Iran to do some kind of ground mobilization themselves. For example, he's encouraging Kurdish forces, Iranian Kurdish forces that are in Iraq across the border to enter Iran. And he said that he thinks that this is wonderful, that he'd be all for it. And as I mentioned, he's been encouraging the Iranian people to rise up, to hit the streets, and to use basically what the U.S. and Israeli militaries are doing in terms of strikes to be some kind of cover so that they can hit the streets to effect some kind of regime change. But to your answer, no American troops on the ground, based on what he's saying right now. And also politically, guys, we know that whether Americans would support this and how that would affect or impact what happens in the midterms this year.
So the president has urged Iranians, as you just indicated, Ramy, to take their country back, take back their country. But yesterday, he also insisted he be involved in choosing their next leader. What do we know about the potential heirs to this regime and what their level of, I don't want to use the word friendliness, but what their level of accommodation to the United States might they bring to the table?
Sure, absolutely. From the analysts, the Iranian analysts who I've been speaking with, there does exist a short list, if you will, of candidates that have been talked about over the past year. That ranges from people who are hardline to, I use this word delicately, moderate, people who are very hardline. For example, Mojtaba Khamenei, who's one of the sons of the late Ayatollah. But it could be the former president, Hassan Rouhani, for example, who was seen as a moderate president there. But President Trump, he said that he thinks he has a good idea of who that could be. But, you know, if you remember, I remember on Tuesday, he told us that most of the people that they had in mind had been killed in the original strikes after, you know, the now late Ayatollah was killed. Ultimately, though, the president having a say in the next supreme leader likely is something that Iran's clerics would really certainly not agree to.
All right, Ramy Inocencio reporting from London. Ramy, thank you very much.
You bet.
An armed Iranian militant group has told CBS News it is in contact with the U.S. and says it shares some of the same goals. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams has more from northern Iraq.
This is the camp of an Iranian opposition group here in northern Iraq. They say that this camp was hit by a drone strike last night, launched either directly by the Iranian regime, they believe, or by a militia group here in Iraq that is backed by Iran. Now, there are several Iranian opposition groups operating here in northern Iraq, and some of them are armed. President Trump, speaking in an interview yesterday, encouraged those groups to go on the offensive against the regime, saying it would be, quote, wonderful if they wanted to do that. Now, the groups represent the Kurdish ethnic minority, which is around 10% of Iran's population. And we filmed at one of those groups' bases here in January, around 30 miles from Iran's border, the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan. We spoke with one of that group's leaders here last night. He told us that they are in contact with the US government, have not yet received any direct support, but he told us he believes they share the same goal, which is to topple the Iranian regime. When we asked him whether they'd been promised any support if they launch a military offensive inside Iran, he said he couldn't answer that. He said it was too sensitive. Now, this would not be the first time that Kurdish groups have teamed up with the US. We witnessed Kurdish fighters help defeat ISIS in Iraq and Syria, working hand in hand with America. But the Iranian regime is a much more deadly, dangerous enemy than ISIS because it's armed with ballistic missiles and drones. Holly Williams, CBS News in northern Iraq.
That was Holly Williams. Thank you so much, Holly.
All right, the IDF is stepping up its fight with Hezbollah as it fires missiles into Israel amid the war with Iran. CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata explains.
We're at a high point in northern Israel overlooking Lebanon behind me. And the reason we're here is because this has sort of become a new front line in America's and Israel's fight against Iran, because Lebanon is home to the Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah. Hezbollah, in the past, has launched wide-range attacks across Israel following October 7th, to such a degree that the Israelis had to come to terms with the cessation of hostilities because of Hezbollah's power to strike. Now, despite the IDF, Israel Defense Forces, going after Hezbollah's missiles and rockets, despite trying to deplete them, it's estimated they have tens of thousands of rockets that they've been able to replenish. And those rockets put populated areas, especially here in northern Israel, well within reach of Hezbollah. So after sitting out the first few days of this conflict, Hezbollah has started to strike out, not in the kind of numbers that they're capable of striking out on, and Israel has struck back. Roughly 120 to 200 people have been killed inside Lebanon due to Israeli strikes. Israeli forces are considering a ground troop offensive where they have moved into parts of southern Lebanon in order to discourage Hezbollah from keeping up its attack. So this is now a new front, certainly that the Israelis are dealing with, which is a headache because when Hezbollah fires into Israel alongside Iran, it depletes their interceptors, which is multi-layered. We've heard of the Iron Dome, but there's David's Sling. Depends on what's coming in. But the more rockets that Hezbollah fires into Israel and the more that Iran fires into Israel, particularly at the same time, it is a drain on Israeli defenses and can overwhelm the system. Back to you.
All right, for more analysis, let's bring in CBS News contributor Robert Berger, who's live for us in Jerusalem. Robert, the president is saying that the United States can continue to prosecute this war with no end in sight. He's also calling for Iran's unconditional surrender. And language like that suggests that it's a war, which brings up a whole other set of questions. But how does Israel see this ending?
I think Israel has two goals in the end game. First of all, you want to cripple the enemy. That would be Iran and Hezbollah and Lebanon, so that they can't attack Israel or threaten Israel for a long time, hopefully many years. So what does that mean? First of all, you go after the ballistic missiles in Iran, of course, what's left of the nuclear program, the existing missiles and launchers, and then you go after the production facilities for those missiles and other weapons, and that would also apply to Hezbollah in Lebanon. So that's the first goal. And then the second goal, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated openly that it is regime change. So first of all, in the first minute of the war, Israel took out 30 of Iran's leaders, including the Ayatollah Khamenei, and since then has taken out about 20 more. And they're continuing to go after the leadership and also those who enforce power, if you will, in Iran, and that would be the Revolutionary Guard and the besieged militia. The hope is that when the smoke clears, the people will rise up and take power. And,
you know, an Israeli prime minister has been a really strong, he's been someone who's been wanting to, he's spoken strongly against Iran. But where do Israelis stand? I mean, are they for this conflict? Are they against this conflict? They're, you know, seeing missiles being intercepted above their heads. How are many Israelis feeling?
Oh, I mean, the nation is widely behind this because, I mean, this isn't really seen as an existential threat. Iran is. And also, you know, we've had 2 years of war previously with Gaza and with the rockets coming in from Lebanon. And also, we had a war last year with Iran and here in Israel. So Israelis are firmly behind it. And as far as Netanyahu, you know, he's doing quite well in the polls. You know, when you compare him to, in the polls, when they compare him to his political opponents, he generally is considered by a wide margin to be the best person to lead the country. So from a political point of view, Netanyahu could stand to gain from this war in an election year. We're expecting elections in about 6 months.
All right, Robert Berger reporting from Jerusalem. Robert, thank you very much.
Thank you.